Welcome back to GovExplained, where we break down the complex world of geopolitics. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating and, frankly, unprecedented development, the Miami Peace Plan. You've heard of Geneva, Camp David, Oslo, but Miami? The sunny beaches of South Florida are now the unlikely backdrop for some of the most critical diplomatic negotiations of our time, aimed at resolving the conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine. For decades, international diplomacy followed a fairly predictable script: multilateral forums, UN resolutions, carefully staged summits in neutral European capitals. But that script has been completely rewritten by the current U.S. administration. We're witnessing a shift from traditional consensus-driven diplomacy to something far more direct, transactional, and some would say audacious. Let's start with Gaza. A humanitarian crisis there is immense, and a lasting ceasefire has proven elusive. The U.S. approach in Miami has been to bring together key regional players, specifically Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt, who have unique leverage and interests. The central idea being pushed? An international stabilization force, or ISF, for Gaza. Now, an ISF isn't a new concept, but the way it's being proposed is. It's not necessarily a UN-mandated force, which often gets bogged down in Security Council politics. Instead, we're looking at a coalition potentially comprising troops from Arab nations, with logistical and financial backing from the U.S. and potentially European partners. The goal? To secure humanitarian aid corridors, prevent resurgence of militant activity, and eventually support a transitional Palestinian Authority. The negotiations are reportedly intense, with each nation pushing for their own influence in a post-conflict Gaza. This brings us to a crucial question. Why Miami? This isn't just about the weather. This administration has a clear preference for direct, bilateral, or small group negotiations, often with a focus on deal-making outside the traditional diplomatic machinery. Miami, as a vibrant international hub, offers a less formal, more business-like environment. It signals a departure from the established norms of diplomatic protocol, reflecting a policy that prioritizes outcomes over established process. While Gaza dominates the headlines from Miami, the other major track is Ukraine. For months, the U.S. has been pushing its own vision for ending the conflict, and these Miami talks are crucial for solidifying that plan. We've seen a clear divergence in approaches here. While Europe has tried to broker broader ceasefire agreements or incremental peace steps, the U.S. has been advocating for a more decisive, if controversial, framework. Just last week, the Kremlin sharply criticized European attempts to modify what they call the U.S.-led Ukraine peace plan. This tells us a lot. It suggests a more comprehensive American proposal is on the table, one that likely involves specific territorial understandings, security guarantees, and potentially a framework for future reconstruction. The involvement of Turkey in these talks is particularly significant, given its unique position straddling NATO and its complex relationship with both Russia and Ukraine. The Miami Peace Plan for Ukraine is reportedly aimed at freezing the current lines of conflict, demilitarizing certain zones, and establishing a framework for long-term security. It's a pragmatic, some would say cynical, approach that prioritizes stability over absolute justice, seeking to end the active fighting and pivot towards a new geopolitical equilibrium in Eastern Europe. The challenge, of course, is getting both Kyiv and Moscow to agree, let alone Europe. So what does this Miami Peace Plan tell us about U.S. foreign policy in 2025? It signifies a clear move away from the post-Cold War era of multilateralism and liberal interventionism. We are firmly in an era of transactional diplomacy and great power deal-making. The U.S. is less interested in building broad international consensus and more focused on leveraging its power and influence to broker agreements that serve its strategic interests. This approach has both its proponents and its critics. Supporters argue that it's more efficient, cutting through bureaucratic red tape and forcing quicker resolutions. They believe it reflects the realities of a multipolar world where traditional institutions like the UN or even NATO are less effective at resolving complex, entrenched conflicts. Critics, however, warned that this approach risks alienating allies, undermining international law, and creating unstable, temporary solutions that could unravel in the long run. They argue that bypassing established norms can lead to a more dangerous, unpredictable global landscape where might makes right, and smaller nations have less say in their own destiny. The implications of this new diplomatic style are profound. If the Miami talks yield concrete, albeit imperfect, agreements, it could set a precedent for how future global crises are managed. We could see more pop-up summits in unexpected locations, driven by specific power brokers rather than broad international bodies. It also means that middle powers and regional actors like Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt are gaining significant influence, acting as crucial intermediaries in a world where direct engagement between major adversaries is often fraught. Their ability to speak to multiple sides makes them indispensable in this new era of unconventional diplomacy. As these talks continue behind closed doors in Miami, the world watches with bated breath. Will this unconventional approach deliver lasting peace in Gaza and Ukraine? Or will it merely pave the way for future conflicts, designed by expediency rather than principle? Only time will tell. What are your thoughts on the Miami peace plan? Do you think this transactional approach is the future of diplomacy or a dangerous deviation? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to GovExplained for more in-depth analysis, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next breakdown. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, and this has been GovExplained.